Hi, Ant here again with yet another screencast for you. Today, we're going to be looking at how we bounce audio out of Pro Tools instrument tracks onto audio tracks. So this is bouncing an instrument track to an audio track. You may wonder why we would do that. There are three main reasons for it. One is performance. If you're running out of power on your computer, or if you've not got a very powerful computer, then an audio track playing back will place far less strain on the system than an instrument track playing back. The second reason is that there are a lot of editing possibilities available to you when a track is audio that you can't do when it's MIDI. And also, archivally, it's quite important. So whenever I mix, do a final mix of a track, I do like to have all the instruments down as audio, because if I go back to that in 6 months, a year, 10 years, whenever, I want to be able to just open up those audio tracks, even if it's not in Pro Tools or anything, and be able to hear what was going on. So that's the three main reasons for doing it. Okay, so in this session, I've got 3 instrument tracks. I've got some drums coming out of Structure 3. I've got an arpeggio in Expand 2, and I've got a bass line in Vacuum. So let's just quickly hear this. Okay, so very simple. So we have 3 stereo instrument tracks. So to bounce them down onto individual tracks, I'm going to need 3 stereo audio tracks. So I've got Keycaster running, so you can see all of the shortcuts that I'm using. So I fire up the new track dialog, and I select 3 stereo audio tracks. Okay, and then I click Create. And so there we are with 3 new stereo audio tracks. Now, I'm just going to name these 3. So on the instrument tracks, I've named them after the instrument. But on these, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to call that one drums. And then the next one I'm going to call arp for arpeggio. And then on the third one, bass. Okay, so that's our 3 tracks. Now, I have Pro Tools set up currently so we can see the I/O here on this window. You may not see that on one of the workstations you're using. Okay, now if we go in the view menu here, if we go to edit window views, you can see I/O is one of the options there. So that if you select that, it hides or shows it. Okay, so I'm going to leave it hidden, and I'm going to do it in the mixer so we can see this actually happening in the mixer. So what I need to do now is I need to route the output of these 3 tracks to the inputs of these 3 tracks. Okay, so I'm going to go over to the mixer, and I'm going to make that wide. Now we have here these are our 3 instrument tracks. Okay, so what we need to do is route them to 3 stereo buses. We're going to use the buses to carry the audio from each track to our audio track. So for the first one, let's go to the output here and go to bus. Okay, and then up here, these are all our active buses. You can see all these ones that are inactive at the moment. So let's use bus 1 and 2 for that one, and let's use bus 3 and 4 for that one, and bus 5 and 6 for that one. Now, as you can see, for each stereo bus, there's also 2 mono buses. So if you had a mono instrument track, or the same for an audio track, if you wanted to bounce it somewhere else, you could just use the mono send. Okay, so bus 5 and 6. Okay, so that's our outputs. So if you imagine now, when I play the session in Pro Tools, the audio of this track will go out down bus 1 and 2, and then any track that has the input set to bus 1 and 2, the audio will show up there. Okay, so this is our drums track here, the audio track, and I go to the input and set bus 1 and 2. So now the audio comes out of there and goes into there. Now I'm going to do the same on the other 2 audio tracks. So bus 3 and 4, and then bus 5 and 6. Okay, so we've got these 3 tracks going to those buses, and those buses come back on these audio tracks. So I'm going to put these 3 tracks into record. I'm going to flip back here so we can actually see what's going on. Now, all we have to do now is put ourselves to the beginning of the session. So you can see I press return to do that, press record, and then press play. Now, as you can see, I left that recording afterwards. And the reason I did that is because at the end of that arpeggio, you can hear there's an echo on it. Okay, so I wanted to keep that because remember, I could just record, if I was just using a loop of this, I could just record it once and then loop it. But I wanted to keep that tail of the echo in case I wanted to use it. Okay, so there you have it. We have 3 audio tracks of our instruments. So what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to select these 3 tracks and I'm going to right click on them and I'm going to go hide and make inactive. So what that does is it hides the tracks and it turns them off as well. So the instruments on them are just deactivated. So they're not using any CPU power or anything like this. Right, I'm going to zoom in so we can see everything. So there you can see our 3 audio tracks. Okay. I'll just set the outputs here. There we go. Just need to... There we go. Okay, so we're all sorted there. So that's how you get the instruments down onto audio tracks. The next thing I'm going to show you is how we can apply some editing to these tracks using Audio Suite. We've not really looked at it much so far. Essentially, what Audio Suite is plugins that are applied to audio. Okay, so this is different from in the mixer when you put a plugin on an insert and it just sits there live doing its thing as you play the track. With Audio Suite, you've got almost all the same plugins and some extra ones, but what you do is you have to actually select a chunk of audio and then apply the Audio Suite effect to it. Okay, so I'll tell you what I'm going to do is I want to find one little bit of my arpeggio and I'm going to make it go backwards. Okay, so I'm going to reverse the audio. So I've highlighted this section. If I solo the arpeggio. Okay, so if I go up to Audio Suite and go down to Other, we've got these utility plugins. These are mainly ones that you don't see elsewhere in the mixer and stuff like that. So we've got reverse here. So I click on there and that comes up like this. And there's not really any controls on this because it only does one thing. But all Audio Suite plugins will have this button preview here and then process here. And basically I hit preview. So it just previews what it's going to do, okay, if I apply the effect like that. So, yep, I like that. So now I'm going to go process. And so what that's actually done is it's made a new little audio file and put it there in its place. So you see, and you see how it names it to give you an idea of what it is that you did to it, okay? So that's just like a little section where I've made it go backwards. Okay, and then, you know, there's any number of other things that I could do. So if I select that, I go to Audio Suite, I'm going to go lo-fi. So now what I could do is I could just make this little section sort of lo-fi. Hang on a second. There we go. And now I can bypass it so I can hear it without it. And then that's with it on. Okay, so now I've got that section there. So I've just, you see it's actually made a new track and it's been applied to the audio there. Now the thing to remember is that all of the original track is still present in Pro Tools. It's up here in the regions list. I'll just open this up so it's a bit easier to see. So ARP01 is our original track. And because it's in bold in the regions list, that means it's a whole file, okay? So there we go. So that's the original ARP track. So I can always get that back. That's not a problem. So I've done a little bit of editing there. Let's just have a look at some of the drums. Take the sound off. So I'm going to do a similar thing. Sounds quite cool, the lo-fi on the drums. Okay, so this gives you some of the some ideas of how you can use sort of creative editing on the audio. The other thing to remember is that all the normal plugins, pretty much, I'm pretty sure at least 99% of them are available in an audio suite as well. So for example, if you had some compression that you thought was really cool that you wanted to actually apply to the audio, so that if you were taking it into another platform like Logic or Cubase or whatever, you could actually apply it. And remember, the original audio track will still be there in your regions. So if I go into Audio Suite and I'm going to use the Sans amp on the bass line, okay? So if I bring up one of the Sans amp bass presets, so I bypass that. So I've made it sort of crunchy. So I'll process that. And so now that whole track has had that applied to it, okay? Whereas if I undo it, you see it goes back. But that original audio file is still there. So it's good to apply effects like this if you're not going to have access to that plugin, if you're going to be carrying on working in somewhere else with it. Okay, so I hope that's given you a good insight into how we bounce instrument tracks to audio tracks. Remember, if you've got any questions, you can always email me or speak to me in lectures. Okay, so thank you very much, and I'll see you again soon.